Hi again, folks. Welcome to another evening of Massillon History. Again, this is where we each week hopefully enlighten you, entertain you, educate you, aggravate you, all those things that we like to do, but we hope you enjoy the program. Again, behind the camera, Mr. Jay David.
Hey.
He's the guy that puts us all together. And again, if you have any vintage footage, that's a weird word. Vintage footage. If you have vintage feet. No. Things that we can show to the public. Not feet. Please give Jay David a call at 832-9599.
Or if you're looking for a date.
Yeah, you can give him a call for that too.
Yeah,
So,
there you go.
yes.
I can see how this is going now.
Yes.
I don't have anything to worry about.
Yes, no, sometimes this program just
Falls apart.
falls apart. Yes. Our guest tonight is Captain Joe Herrick from the Massillon Police Department. Captain Joe, how long on the force?
23 years.
23 years. Joe is a graduate of Case. Did you go to Case?
I'm not a graduate of Case. I went to Case. I went to University of Cincinnati. Went to Kent Stark.
One of them guys.
Finally, I graduated
I know
from
that
the
feeling.
University of Akron.
Akron U, okay.
Yes.
But I know, because I know Case Western Reserve was next to the Lake Erie College for Women, I think.
Lake College for Erie
We used to
Women.
call Lake College for Erie Women, yeah.
Okay.
So, but he's been on the force. Joe's also president of something, or the
I am
leader of
not the
something.
president.
He is not the president.
I am the exchequer.
He is the supreme exchequer of something called the Community Inactivist Guild. And this is an association whose goals are to exist, pay dues, and do nothing else. There's no meetings, there's no committees, they organize no activities. But don't let this fool you, because Joe is actively involved with the Boys and Girls Club of Massillon. He helps them raise funds. He's involved with the Massillon Amateur Radio Club. He's involved with the 4th of July Picnic in the Park Committee to try to raise funds for that event so that we all have a good time. He's also the head pig cooker at the Massillon Museum's Island Party every year. And he's probably involved with a whole lot of other stuff that he doesn't want to admit to. So, Captain Joe, welcome to our program here.
Do we have any time left after that introduction?
No, I tried to make it longer so we would have to say much. Usually when we do our history programs here, they're generally on the light. We bring back memories and everything, but history also has a dark side. And not saying that it's you,
Thank
okay? But sometimes it helps to see about that too. So we are going to invite Joe to come back another time and talk about the history of the Massillon Department and do some of those types of things in perhaps a little lighter vein. But tonight it's a little different. Most of the time, law enforcement gets the bad guy. Sometimes it takes a little longer. And I guess in reference to that, we're talking about Massillon having a few unsolved cases, I understand. So,
TV has made cold case files exciting.
Oh yeah. Oh, you know what else I wanted to ask you? Every time I watch CSI or something, they bring this body in, and all of a sudden they can match your fingerprints in 10 seconds. They can do the blood types. Then they have these fancy graphics and these computers up here, and all this has gone on over here, and they catch a bad guy in about 15 minutes. But every time we look at that, I always ask my wife, I wonder if Joe Herrick has any of that stuff. You have any of that stuff floating around your office?
No.
All right.
The fingerprints we send to the crime lab. It takes about 2 weeks to get back. Blood tests and DNAs take a little longer than that, and everything else is a figment of TV's imagination.
That's what I kind of figured. But of course, there was also a program called the Cold Case Show, I guess, at one time or another. But Massillon has some cold cases too, evidently.
Yes, we do.
So, would you want to tell us about those, or?
Okay. Well, first, they come in a couple of categories. Our cases are only considered solved if we have a conviction. So we do have, most of these cases that I'll talk about, we do have suspects. We have people who we believe did it, but since we didn't go to court and get a conviction, they still technically remain unsolved. If they are unsolved and open, we are still hoping to get somebody and get a conviction. If they are unsolved and closed, we more than likely have somebody in mind that we can't prosecute for some reason or another.
Which has to be pretty frustrating, I would
and it is.
Yeah.
And I'll get to a couple of
Okay.
those. But the first two cases I want to talk about are relatively recent, and I do want to talk about them because they're probably the ones that are most familiar to your viewers. And I didn't get a chance to talk about them the last time I did this little
Oh,
bit.
okay. Yeah.
And one was Carlos Steele, and he was killed in 1990. And this actually is the one I have the most information on, and I can say the least about because it is still open, it is still unsolved, and we're still hoping someday to catch the person who did it. But he was actually asleep in bed with his girlfriend, had somebody break in. We believe it was a robbery. The motive was robbery, and he was shot and killed in his bed. The girlfriend apparently didn't know who it was. He did know who it was, and when the police officers responded, he was still alive, but he refused to tell them who it was. So he knew who his assailant was, and we have no idea, and are still hoping for leads on that we can get somebody sometime.
So on any of these cases that you mentioned, if anybody knows anything, they can contact you at the police department? Is that?
Absolutely,
I understand.
or contact the regular police number 832-9811 and ask for the detective bureau.
Okay.
They're the ones that would do any follow-up investigation, but they can ask for me, and I'll talk to them and point them in the right direction.
Okay.
We do have a tip line that they can call anonymously, but I can't remember what that is.
You never call it.
I think it's, I think it's 830-1744, and it is in the phone book.
Okay.
So the other one that we had was Trevino Perkins. He was killed in December of 1997. He was found slumped over in his vehicle on Forest Southeast, and he was shot multiple times. We did an investigation. We had a suspect. However, before we could prosecute the case, the suspect that we had was in jail in an unrelated charge and committed suicide while he was in jail.
Oh, wow.
So it's one that we believe is solved, but
Ended, but not in the way you want it to.
right. So we can't. It's still an open case, remains unsolved, but no one will ever be prosecuted out of it, more than likely.
Yeah. Police department. Yeah, sometimes we complain about the police department. They give us tickets. They tell us to get the hell out of the way when we're at the car show or something like that. But these are the guys and gals that are doing the dirty work. They're the ones that kind of keep us safe, whether we want to admit it or not. So I thank you for it. I mean, I don't envy your jobs at all. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I'm sorry. I was starting to wonder if this was a good interview or a bad interview, if I was going to be attacked here.
That's still to be determined. We ain't done yet.
Okay. I guess the one case that seems to draw the most attention from the people that lived in town for a while, that from a history perspective, is on June 6th in 1947, we had 2 infants that were killed at the Massillon Community Hospital.
Okay.
Diane Brand and Rosemary Morton. And it's really perplexing because they were found dead 10 minutes after their last check and they were fine.
Wow.
So there's a very narrow window of opportunity. There is a list of suspects, none of whom we've ever come across. The 8-week-old Diane Brand had undergone surgery, abdominal surgery, and she was in there recovering. 9-week-old Rosemary Morton was born small and gone home, and they brought her back because she was having trouble. And so they were both. She wasn't holding down her food, so they were both in the hospital. They were discovered dead at 7:45 p.m. They were checked by a nurse at 7:35 p.m. The police were not notified for 40 minutes.
Wow.
After this was over, the hospital superintendent almost immediately declared, our people did no wrong. There's nothing, no
Yeah,
problems
yeah,
up here.
yeah.
They had the place clean, spick and span immediately.
All the evidence is gone.
Yeah, all the evidence was gone.
Wow.
Excuse
As
me.
a civilian, am I allowed to say cover up?
Well, that's one of the big allegations because the family ended up hiring their own private investigator because they weren't happy with the investigation the police department did. The police department convinced one family that the private investigator wasn't doing any good, and they fired the private investigator. The second family kept them on, and the first family rehired the private investigator.
Wow.
Then the private investigator was involved in a car crash and killed, and was never.
Wow.
This story is, could not be written for TV.
I was gonna say,
better.
so that's movie material there.
It is. And go through the list of suspects. There were 2 nurses. There was a student nurse, the regular nurse. Let's see. The father of the one, the brother-in-law of the father. There was a man behind a wheelchair who witnesses identified as a man behind a wheelchair who ended up being a 15-year-old boy. There was a man and a woman seen leaving the hospital by the employee door. There was a man a neatly dressed man in a striped suit carrying some kind of white bundle leaving the hospital. So there's all these suspects that are thrown out there and thrown into the mix. There were 2 6-year-old boys and a 5-year-old girl from adjacent rooms that were interviewed and didn't hear anything, didn't see anything. The guy that saw the man and woman leaving the hospital was an off-duty Wayne County police officer or Wayne County deputy. So all this is flying around. The one father is a suspect. The father voluntarily took 2 lie detector tests. He took the first one and was found. It was actually found to be tainted. They were taking him to Cleveland. There wasn't supposed to be any publicity surrounding the case, or it wasn't supposed to be leaked that he was doing anything. And while he's on his way to Cleveland, he hears on the radio that he is being, going for the lie detector, which he knew why he was going, but they still feel that the stress kind of skewed the test. He initially refused to take the second test, but a couple weeks later took the second test and was found to be telling the truth. The nurses that were on duty were given polygraph tests, and they were found to be telling the truth, and everything was fine.
Polygraphs were semi-reliable at the time?
They are still considered to be reliable, but not admissible to be used against you. So I mean, they were all taken voluntarily. They couldn't be forced to take a polygraph,
Okay.
but they did and passed with flying colors.
So you guys have to sort all this stuff out. I mean, the cops have to figure out the puzzles in these instances. Wow. Who was chief? Switter? at the time?
Switter was chief at the time. Now, when I gave this program at the museum,
The brown bag?
at the Brown Bag, I had several people tell me that they know who did it.
Oh.
And this is one of those
Wow,
cases
wow.
that all of the people in town at the time supposedly know who did it, but it doesn't appear in any of the police files.
Is that right?
So yes, there are conspiracy theories abound on this.
And that's 65 years ago. now,
Yes.
Thereabouts.
Now I have, again, there's supposedly doctors, nurses, strangers, children, all the suspects you could want here, like a game of Clue, line them up in the room.
Yeah,
and-
Mrs. Mustard in the library with a
Yes.
candlestick or something.
So,
Wow.
so we need somebody to go through the room and say, you didn't do it, and
Wow.
you did.
Wow. And a lot of those people are probably gone now, both
Yes.
physically and locationally
And
Yeah.
and I don't know if the families are still in Massillon, but in 1995, the Independent did an article on the unsolved murders in Massillon. And Edna Brand and Evelyn Morton, the two parents, they both stated they weren't happy with the investigation. They thought it was being covered up. They felt it was sloppy. And that's why they hired the private investigator to come in. And again, to this day, there is no resolution to that case.
Wow.
We have absolutely no official idea of who did it.
Still open.
It's still open.
Yeah. Wow. Wow.
Rudy did it.
I did it, yeah. I had hair then. People didn't recognize me, yes.
I don't know. He might have done the next one.
Oh, what's the next one?
The next one is Miss Elva Mann.
Oh, actually, I taught school with her sister. Yes, I'm pretty familiar with this case.
So,
yes.
so she was a retired school teacher, which I know you are a former school teacher.
Yeah.
She was killed on 4th Street. You lived on 4th Street.
I lived across the street from her.
You lived across the street.
Uh-oh.
Okay.
I knew her sister.
Yes. So
Looking bad for me here.
absolutely, but Miss Mann was a 77-year-old retired school teacher. She's had spent 44 years teaching in Massillon, 28 years at Washington High School, her last 8 years as a librarian. This happened Wednesday, March 16th, 1966. So we are, 45 years almost to the date this year to do her anniversary, the anniversary of her death. The last person to see her was a Girl Scout selling Girl Scout cookies. And, she paid with cash out of her wallet, and the coroner ends up determining a time of death about between 6:30 and 8:30, and this Girl Scout was sometime around 5:30 or so. Her niece would call and check on her, Miss Mann's niece, and she called at 7:30 in the morning, couldn't reach her, and ended up calling the police to go up and check out to go up and check out the house. The neighbor ended up discovering her purse in between houses and attempted to return it. Didn't get an answer. Told another resident, I guess it's an apartment house there, that he was there. Excuse me. And the neighbor went and actually checked and found her dead. So she was found with a blunt trauma to her head and brain damage and fractures. The house where she lived is 110 4th Street Northeast. I believe the house is still there. She
One
was
of the big, beautiful old houses with a bunch of apartments in it. Yeah.
yes. Is that the one that had right directly across from the Russell House?
Yes.
With the
yes.
gargoyles.
Designed by the same architect that did the Women's Club.
Yes,
Yeah.
16 apartments in that house.
Yeah, that's sad. Yeah.
I counted them one day.
Is that right? Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
It is a shame.
Wow.
If I ever hit the lottery, that's the one I'd like to buy in
Yeah,
the store.
fix it up. Yeah, knock all those walls out. Yeah.
Yes. She was missing her wallet, which was a gift from her niece, which was easily identifiable later on, which was part of the reason. The niece stated that there was more than likely a large amount of money, between $50 and $100 missing, which was a large amount of money in 1966. So it's still a large amount of money to me today.
Sure, me too. Yeah.
And 6 checks were missing. They were saying Miss Mann never locked her doors, never went out after dark, very friendly, very trusting
She liked her
person.
sister, yeah.
Her wallet was found 3 weeks later at the Fidelity Bus Garage on 1st Street Northeast, and I don't know where that was.
On 1st Street Northeast.
Yeah, it says there were children playing in the buses, and they found the wallet in the back of the
Yeah,
bus.
I'm not exactly sure where it was, but
Okay.
I think I have a picture of a bus at that location. But I'm
Okay.
not exactly sure where it was either.
Okay, the closest now For a while, weren't they down at Roars, where Roars is now?
Well, that's what I'm
Where-
thinking. It was maybe next door there, yeah, where the new building's being built.
Because-
maybe behind that or something. The building
Because I remember buses operating out of the back building there,
Okay.
the short buses in the 70s, the last ones
Yeah,
that
yeah,
ran
yeah,
around.
yeah. Okay, yeah.
And then I remember out on Lincoln Way.
Margie, call us. Tell us where it's at.
Okay. I see how you get distracted on the
Yes,
show. Yeah, I remember when.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
It's a history show. That's kind of what we
Yes.
do. Yeah.
The murder weapon was never found. It was determined to be cleaver-like.
Wow.
I don't know what
Which I have
cleaver-like
right here
is.
in my dining room.
Hey, we could have
You
used
can
that
give
as a
it back
prop.
to me. Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the old family one that they
Yes.
used to take the head off the pigs with on 4th
Yes.
Street.
Yes. I don't know if you're going to mention suspects or not, but I think one of your suspects was also grew up in the neighborhood I grew up in, which was Columbia Heights.
Okay. Well, I'm going to
Further
name.
looking bad for me.
I'm going to name a suspect.
Oh, okay.
James Wood was arrested. Is this the one you're looking for?
No, it was the other guy.
The other guy that I won't, whose name I won't mention.
No, not him, but
Not
another
him
one.
either.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
There's
You're
not-
going to have to tell me.
I'll give you another
Right,
one.
yeah, write down the name, and you can tell me who the other
This guy-
suspect
the
is.
first one you're going to mention was a couple years ahead of me at school.
Okay.
And football player for Tigers. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yes, he was.
Yeah.
A gentleman by the name of James Wood was arrested in January of 1969. There was a secret indictment issued against him, and officers had to go down to Columbus to pick him up. Apparently, he was living in Columbus. He had lived in those apartments, so he's got a better connection than you. He lived in the apartments,
Okay,
not
that-
across the street. He was also questioned in an unsolved murder of a 19-year-old from Beach City who was found dead near Mount Vernon in Knox County, the murder occurring around the same time. He had a previous report of assaulting a man with a pipe. However, he was never charged. He was brought to trial. They did take him to trial, and he was found not guilty. So, he is found not guilty. We have a case which is closed. The case against this person is closed. The case is still unsolved. We do have a second suspect that I have here, but I have absolutely no information about it, and you're going to provide me with a third suspect.
Maybe later.
Which is why I really like doing this at the museum with all the feedback
Yeah,
we
yeah,
get.
yeah, well, absolutely. Same way here. If you,
So-
people are watching this. If you know anything,
Yes.
yeah. Well, don't
Okay.
call Jay David if you have things that we look at. Call the police department
For
if
a
you know
date.
anything about these cases. Yes,
Or
yes.
for a date, yes.
Yes, or for a date. Don't call the police department for a date. Call Jay David for a date. Police department for information.
Would you like to put those numbers on the screen? Okay. How many people actually watch this show? Am I embarrassing myself?
More than I thought.
Okay.
More than I thought. I thought.
Say the word booger.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I thought maybe 6.
Okay.
But people are coming
Well,
up to me
there's
and they
more
see it.
people in our family than that.
Well,
so
that's
we're
true
okay.
too. So we're covered so far.
All
Yes.
right.
No, we seem to have a growing list of watchers, so that's a good thing.
Okay, good deal.
Yes.
Let's see, the other one I have here that seemed to resurface recently within the last 2 years is the death of Debbie Smith. And Debbie was a 10-year-old girl who was abducted
The
from
street
the
festival.
sidewalk.
The street festival.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And we used to have the sidewalk show carnival downtown,
Yep.
and this event pretty much ended that because everyone was afraid that somebody associated with the carnival, one of the carnies, was responsible, and which ended up being absolutely false rumor and nothing to do with the carnival itself.
Oh, I'm sorry, Joe. Before you do that, I meant to say when you were talking about the babies at the hospital, for you younger folks that are watching, if you are, that's not the current hospital. That was the old Madison Community Hospital on Amherst. It's torn down. That's now a parking lot.
Yes.
The other murder was on 4th Street. That building still exists. And the show Joe's talking about now was Downtown Street Carnival that put on by the Massillon Merchants prior to the car show days. They would block off the streets, carnival rides, that kind of stuff. They would hire carnival people to come into
What
town.
year?
Mid 80s. What year was
Debbie
this?
Smith was June 25th of 1983.
83. So there you go.
They,
So right
they
now.
always did the carnival the week after Father's Day in June. I remember.
The car show started Father's Day weekend in 1989 or 90, right in that range. So,
Yes.
so they went away for a while. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, but I just wanted to. put
That's
that out.
that's all right. Matter of fact, I wrote a note here for you later.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with this, but possible show for them to do later, which I will not be a part of.
Okay.
Yes, but Debbie Smith was found. She was abducted June 25th of 1983, and her body was found in the Tuscarawas River in Bolivar August 6th of that year, and she was found. She was stabbed in the chest. In the area, Stark, Wayne County area, during 1981 to 83, there were 4 murders of young girls during that time. And Tina Harmon, age 12, of Creston, Ohio, Krista Harrison of Marshallville, Dawn Marie Hendershot of Massillon, and Debbie K. Smith of Massillon. Now, Dawn Marie's killer was arrested.
Mauger guy or something like that.
Yes, Donnie Maurer.
Maurer.
He was arrested and prosecuted and convicted on her murder.
And let off the hook by the governor. I'm sorry.
Yes.
It's a little political opinion there.
Yes, he was. Yeah, and serving a life term instead of being
Yes, where it should be.
executed.
You gotta apologize for the editorializing here.
Now, the reason our case with Debbie Smith kind of came to light in the last couple years is because Tina Harmon's family in Wayne County was not satisfied that the person who was convicted of her killing was actually her murderer, and we believe that he is actually the one who killed Debbie, and Tina. And this is one of those cases where we have a suspect. He was found guilty in Tina Harmon's case and was put on death row.
He's executed, wasn't he?
And yes, he ended up being executed, but because of the expense of putting on another capital murder trial, it was declined to prosecute him for Debbie's murder.
What's that guy's name?
Buell.
Buell.
Yes.
Robert Buell.
Robert Buell. And like I say, he was arrested and convicted for Tina Harmon. We believe he's the one that did Debbie Smith, and he just didn't get prosecuted. Now, what happened when Robert Buell was arrested for abduction, rape, and assault of Deborah Davies of Damascus, Ohio, and Patricia Lively of East Liverpool. He was charged and convicted there, and with Krista Harrison. I keep saying Tina Harmon. I don't know the disposition of Tina Harmon, but with Krista Harrison.
Okay.
He was convicted of Krista Harrison's murder. Carpet fibers from his van matched the ones on Harmon's body and on Debbie's body, but he was only charged with Krista Harrison. There's always going to be a question mark there. He denied it to his end. The last words that he spoke were to Krista's parents, saying the killer is still out there. There was a reporter from the Scene and Free Press in Cleveland who wrote stories saying that he believes Buell's nephew is actually the one who committed the murder.
Oh, is that right? Wow.
So there are, he alleges that there was a sloppy investigation, that the evidence was gathered improperly. So he kind of, threw a little fuel on the fire, saying, and increased doubt about who actually did what. Yes, you were talking about him being executed. When I did the research for this, I don't know why, but I ended up on the 10 the top 10 list of last meals by
Is that
prisoners
right?
before they were executed.
Yeah.
And Robert Buell was the number one on the top 10 list of last meals.
What do you get?
He had a single black unpitted olive.
At least he saved us some money.
Now, this supposedly was supposed to be in honor of Victor Fayure, who was the last prisoner executed by the federal government until Timothy McVeigh.
Is that
came
right?
along. Yes. And he told, well, I guess when Fayure did it, that he told prison officials that he hoped an olive tree would sprout from his body and be a symbol of peace.
Is that right?
Yes, and supposedly the body went unclaimed, and it's in an unmarked grave, and there is no olive tree.
Wow.
So that was, you know, one of those strange but true things.
If you get bored some night, there's something to check out. The top 10 meals, last meals. Go online, check
Top
that
10
out.
list of last meals.
Last meals served to death row thing.
Death row inmates.